Apocalypse Party, a dark, crazy publication, written and read by Sean Gilbert. Apocalypse Party is available on Amazon.com in both print and Kindle editions. You can like Dark Crazy Publications on Facebook at facebook.com/darkcrazypublications. The Human Centipede Debate. Like all art and essentially all language, stories translate events into something we can understand. They package the random and the abstract into a thematically meaningful and structured narrative. The purpose of a story is not to relate merely the facts of what occurred, but to in some way interpret what meaning we are to derive from them. So in telling this story, I am in some cases altering the order and timing of certain events merely for the sake of pacing. Because the purpose of storytelling is translation more than transcription, you will find that stories that are less married to the facts are often much closer to the truth. During the establishing scenes of all monster movies, there is always something more sinister occurring somewhere in the background. In the omniscient neutrality that the audience is granted, we are aware of this much sooner than the players. We have seen the movie poster and the trailers. We know the title and the director. In most cases, even the actors tell us the genre of the film we're about to watch. In real life, people don't know what kind of story they're in. So they don't know that while they're joking about becoming President of the United States, there is something awful walking the streets of downtown Savannah. And even it doesn't yet know what it's looking for is a victim. Exterior, Savannah, Congress Street, evening. Wide shot slowly tracks down Congress Street, moving between buildings into an abandoned lot that lets out onto the street. The shot is clumsy and handheld like the POV of a person stumbling through the city. As the unseen visitor stumbles down the street, some onlookers passively regard him, but no one pays him any real attention. He wanders as though looking for something in the Savannah night that would seem familiar, but the place is a dim blur of activity. Shot tracks toward the rail pub very nearly at the end of Congress. This evening is like any other in Savannah. The streets bustle with revelers and passers-by while a crowd of appreciable size begins to gather in the rail. Move in toward the windows, where a group can be seen seated at a table inside. The watcher pauses to regard them a moment, then places a bloodied hand on the glass. Still no one seems to notice he's there. Cut to interior rail pub, continuous. Back in the rail, I was walking to the bar in search of cigarettes. Dane and I didn't really smoke, but we shared a predilection for smoking while we drank, so in this regard we were terrible influences on each other. But vice tends to bond people in a way that virtue often fails to do. Alicia was standing at the bar when I got there. I stood next to her and waited for someone to notice me. It's good that I had a friend there because getting noticed by bartenders is not exactly my forte. "Sup?" I said to Alicia with that level of familiarity that indicates no need for pretense. "Hey, Sean," she said back casually, noticing the campaign button I was wearing. "What's this?" "Campaign button," I told her. "I'm running for president." "You're retarded," she laughed. "That never stopped anyone from running before." Not interested in continuing that conversation, which suited me because I'd already exhausted it with Dane and Charlotte, Alicia looked across the bar and noticed a mildly attractive, bohemian-looking guy. She pointed him out to me as though the very sight of him would provoke an amusing tirade. "What do you think of that guy?" she ribbed me. "Doesn't he look like a total douchebag?" I glanced in his direction, but I knew she was baiting me. The bohemian guy had long, unkempt hair and ratty sandals. Granted, this look was usually enough to set me off, but I was determined to take the high road this time. "You're not going to draw me into a debate here, Alicia. I don't try to start fights anymore. I'm trying to find my positive center." "What about that guy the other night?" "He was wearing a visor," I argued. "Indoors. At night. Who does that?" "You're so persnickety, Sean," she observed in a politely patronizing tone. I liked being referred to as persnickety. "Well, I'm trying to be a better person now, and I'm not going to play your little game," I said with dramatic condescension. But in truth I didn't want to lose my reputation for being persnickety. That was one of my defining vices, too. "What do you think of his sandals?" she poked, adding facetiously, "I think they're sexy." "Sandals are for gladiators," I deadpanned, "or Jesus." "He looks kind of like Jesus." "He looks kind of like a dirty hippie." "Jesus was kind of a dirty hippie," Alicia conceded. "But I like dirty hippies. I'd probably do him too." She waited patiently for the response she felt this comment deserved, but was disappointed to see that it was not forthcoming. "Does that offend you?" she asked, knowing it didn't. "No," I told her. "I've just heard you say it before." She sighed. We'd all heard each other's jokes before. "I need to meet new people," she grumbled. "It's so much easier than coming up with new material." Charlotte still stood at our table as I returned with Alicia. Only then did I know she was serious about her commitment to the Gilberto administration. I thought at first I'd just met her that night, but at this point I realized that I'd actually met her a couple of months before that, when I was so drunk I hardly remembered being there at all. I had made an incredibly clumsy and obnoxious pass at making conversation, then followed up by spilling my whiskey on her and immediately demanding another. She either did not remember this or was too nice to say so. But I was too caught up in my ongoing debate with Alicia to give the matter more than a passing regard. "You're out of your mind," I told her. "It's obvious that C would be better." "I thought you said A was better," she contradicted. "Everyone knows A is best. That's not in question. Beyond that, it's just a matter of whether you'd rather be B or C." "Then it's definitely B," Alicia insisted. I took out the pack of cools I'd procured at the bar, lighting one for myself and handing the pack to Dane. All they had were cools, I told him, then redirected my attention to Alicia. "You're insane. B gets it on both ends. That's the worst of all. But at least B gets to dish it out." "You're disgusting. What's the argument?" asked Dane, keen to get in on it. "What part of a human centipede would you rather be?" Alicia posed to him with utter seriousness. "A," Dane answered reflexively. "You can't be A," I told him, trying to define the parameters of the exercise. "What's a human centipede?" Charlotte asked. "It's when you sew three people together, ass to mouth," I casually informed her. If this is not a satisfactory introduction to the concept for you, let me just sum it up. In the film Human Centipede, a mad German doctor kidnaps three people and sews them together into a single entity by lining them up and sewing subject B's mouth into subject A's ass and subject C's mouth into subject B's ass, then running subject A's intestines through B and C in one long shared digestive tract. "Why would you do that?" Charlotte demanded. "'Cause that's how Dieter Laser rolls," I said in a deliberate effort to deliver a useless response. Alicia decided to move on. "Anyway, A is a given because he doesn't have his mouth sewn to anyone's ass, so the question is if you'd rather be B or C." "Which is obvious," I said confidently, then was amazed to hear Dane answer B as I said C. Dane was equally surprised at the discrepancy between our two answers. "Are you serious?" I asked him. "You're on her side? B has it the worst of all." "Not really," Dane argued. "As far as I was concerned, this was as valid a thing to say as maybe Hitler was right." "How not really?" I demanded. "You have your mouth sewn into someone's ass and someone else's mouth sewn into yours." "Yeah, but at least that way you're not a total victim. You get to shit in someone else's mouth." "Why would you want to shit in someone's mouth?" I looked at Dane and Alicia like they had suddenly admitted to vampirism. "I'm just saying," Dane said nonchalantly. "If someone's shitting in my mouth—" "That's what I'm saying," insisted Alicia. "You're terrible people, both of you," I declared piously. "I have no tolerance for mouth shitters." A new development saved us from taking this discussion to further depths, one which will also serve to move along our story. Enter Stefan. Every now and then there's a drunk guy, so unbelievably obnoxious it's kind of endearing. That night it wasn't me. I'm a sweetheart on my worst night compared to Stefan. He was a 4-foot German who approached our table inexplicably and was just as inexplicably pissed off at the whole of existence. All attempts at conversation ended in bile. He looked confused and disheveled. We were so amused at the idea of him that we didn't even notice that his right hand was covered in dried blood. Considering he chose to stand in such close proximity with no stated purpose, I decided to extend a greeting. "What's up?" He moved between me and Dane to sit on a stool near Charlotte. His surly countenance softened somewhat at the sight of her. "What's up with you?" he asked of her instead of answering me. "I am Stefan." "Where are you from?" she humored him. The novelty of any new experience is enough to make it acceptable to the inebriated. "Where the fuck do you think I'm from?" he said sharply. Deutschland? Tracy asked. He had a distinct German accent. Deutschland, he corrected her, which was unnecessary since the mispronunciation had been deliberate. Whatever, said Tracy, unfazed at the admonishment. Dane decided to try his hand, asking Stefan, "Did you come here for SCAD?" The little man snorted indignantly. "Do I look like a fucking art student?" he complained. "Yes," I told him. He absolutely did. "Do you like it here?" Charlotte asked him, at this point making conversation out of pure fascination. "No, I fucking hate it here," he barked angrily, as if all questions were infuriating. "Then what the fuck are you doing here?" I asked him with annoyance. I meant it in every applicable way. "I don't fucking know," he admitted. "Well, how'd you get here?" I pressed him. "How did you get here, asshole?" was his curt rejoinder. Without asking, Stefan took a cigarette from the pack of Cools and used my lighter to light it. Scowling at the flavor, he examined the pack with disgust. "I hate fucking Cools," he spat out with rage. "Sorry, Stefan," I said insincerely. "They were out of Marlboros." "I hate fucking Marlboros too." He took offense at this, even though we had never offered him a cigarette at all. He was beside himself with anger at the prospect of settling, and banged his tiny fist on the table in defiance. We took no offense, mostly because we couldn't stop laughing. Stefan was a treasure, an unexplainable force of nature, like an angry little gnome sent to entertain us with his ire. The conversation tapered off, and after introductions were made, Stefan couldn't remember anyone's name, so he decided to call everyone Ross. Except me. Me he continued to call asshole. Although Stefan showed us nothing but hostility, he remained anchored to our table. After a while he attempted to impress the girls with his sensitivity by showing pictures of a baby he claimed to be his son. But when questioned as to why he would leave his newborn baby behind to come to a town he couldn't stand for no apparent reason, he recanted his original story and confessed that the child was his stepbrother. Then he thrust this photo, which depicted an infant holding what looked like a kielbasa sausage, at the guys and said, "Now tell me this is the cutest baby you've ever fucking seen!" Stefan had no charm and no class. He was completely obnoxious and rebuffed all attempts at civility. He also had crazy eyes and a tendency to stare, and that was starting to creep me out. But we couldn't get enough of him. Dane equated him to some kind of coin-operated automaton. We just wind him up every time we were ready for another tirade. By the end of the night the girls were gone, perhaps due in some part to Stefan's constant advances. But he was still there. He plopped down next to me, giving us a look like it was our fault he couldn't do any better. "Well," he grumbled, "this turned out to be a dick fest." "Yeah, I wonder how that happened," I said irritably, then rose and announced, "I'm going to take a piss." "I hope you fall in, asshole," he said as I walked away. When I was gone, he picked up my beer and finished it for me with continued distaste. Now alone at the bar with Stefan, Dane did his best to ignore him. Stefan put the bottle down. As Dane looked around to see if anyone might be coming back, Stefan licked his upper lip with what looked like a slimy black tongue. Dane caught this in the corner of his eye and turned to look, but the black thing darted back into Stefan's mouth as he did. "They are coming, you know," Stefan told him ominously. "Who?" asked Dane. Someone finally broke the uncharacteristic quiet of the bar by playing a song on the jukebox. Stefan winced at the sound. He shook his head, sticking his pinky finger in his ear like he was trying to clear water out of it. Dane noticed his red hand for the first time. Stefan rose suddenly. "I hope you all die," he told Dane calmly. "Especially your asshole friend. I go now. Good day." And as abruptly as he'd risen, he exited. That information came from Dane, but in case you're having trouble following the POV shift, this is what was going on with me at the time. The night was winding down as I made my way to the bathroom. The line outside the loo, as the sign on the door identified it, was not long at all, but the guy ahead of me looked annoyed anyway. He was an olive-skinned Greek in his 20s. "You know what's amazing?" he asked me. "I could get all the pussy I want, but that doesn't even matter." "That is amazing," I answered, although I remained incredulous as to the thesis of the statement. "I mean, we Greeks created the world. We invented the screw. We came up with the wine fest." He was saved from having to provide further examples by the opening of the bathroom door. The Greek took what seemed like an incredible amount of time in the bathroom. After a while the guy behind me asked, "What the hell's he doing in there?" Then he kicked the door hard to let the Greek know he meant business. A minute later the Greek came out of the bathroom, looking even more upset. "Who was it?" he demanded of me. "You?" "You don't know if it was me or not," I insisted. I didn't want to back down, but it wasn't me. Satisfied, he said, "That's right," and marched past me to the big guy behind. I walked into the bathroom and never saw how the altercation played out. On the bathroom wall, someone had written, "I fucked your mom." In rebuttal, another person had added, "Go home, Dad, you're drunk." Above this, in bold strokes, was written, "Chuck Norris made crop circles to show the world that sometimes corn needs to lay the fuck down." The rail has the greatest bathroom graffiti of any place I've ever been. Written just above the urinal at eye level, a cryptic prophecy sobered me somewhat. It promised, "December 2012, the world ends."